Even when difficulties arise, things don't go your way, and you realize your own powerlessness, even if you're completely broken, it's okay. There are people who will love you just as you are. People who aren't serious about earning money, which means increasing their market value, are choosing a very hard life for themselves. Living happily means focusing on the only thing you can control in life, your present moment. If you want to enrich everything, work, childcare, hobbies, leisure time, invest in reducing housework. Don't use high-pressure words or attitudes. How you communicate is everything. Hey, I'm Emma, with Wealth Builder. Alright, today we're revealing the top 10 things you should stop doing after you turn 30. I'm not really dissatisfied with my life right now, but I don't know what I should be doing. That's a question I hear a lot. We can't go back to our younger days when we could expect endless possibilities in the future. For adults over 30 to enjoy their work and life even more, it's not about what to do, but what not to do. Our energy is scattered. If you decide what not to do, you can focus your energy on what you really should be doing. You'll have more time, and you'll quickly find what you want to do. Today, I'll share my list of things I sincerely recommend you stop doing in your life. Some of these may be unconventional or things you disagree with. But let me ask you, is there any value in things everyone agrees with? Value comes from being unique. So let's get started with the top 10 things you should stop doing after you turn 30. Alright, let's kick off the list with number 10. Stop chasing gossip. Reclaim the leading role in your life. Even if you're not actively seeking it out, celebrity, public figure, and politician gossip and scandals just seem to pop up everywhere. And it's not just celebrities. It's also the rumors, slander, and backbiting in your company or community. You hear it whether you want to or not. A public figure's inappropriate comment might start as a small online fire, but it quickly spreads, attracting attention from individuals and companies alike, all trying to generate views, and it gets treated like a major social issue. This phenomenon has been getting increasingly worse in recent years. Today's social media and YouTube are what we call the attention economy. It's all about how much attention you can get and how many views and watch time you can generate. As someone who also contributes to these platforms, I don't have the right to criticize, but it's important to be mindful of what you consume and focus on what truly matters in your own life. As a fundamental principle, my motto is to avoid creating villains. Rather than arguing who's right or wrong, it's more efficient to think about how the system itself should work. Media is ultimately an advertising business, and it can't survive if it doesn't attract a lot of attention. So, they have to prioritize things that generate views over things that are inherently valuable. That's the structure. There are no villains in that. News programs have both content that's clearly meant to generate views and content that's beneficial for addressing social issues. There are good and bad aspects. Sometimes, gossip and scandals reveal issues that have been ignored, prompting us to think about how society should be. But, and this is crucial, it's important to know where to draw a line. Don't waste your precious time chasing the lives of others. Instead, focus on building your own. Having understood the pros and cons of gossip and scandals, I want to say this definitively. Don't watch any gossip news, because it will continuously steal your precious life forever. Humans instinctively compare themselves to others, and we react more strongly to negative things. That's why we tend to pay attention to people's gossip, rumors, and slander. Because of this nature, media outlets and individual content creators pick up on gossip. But here's the thing, you have a choice. You can choose to focus on your own life, your own goals, and your own happiness. Don't let the drama of others distract you from what truly matters. When many people start picking up on something, there's peer pressure, and you feel a sense of urgency, like you're out of touch if you don't understand the issue. But that's an illusion. It's perfectly fine not to know about gossip. The same goes for rumors and backbiting in your company or community. It doesn't matter if you don't know. There's nothing you can do even if you try to get involved in knowing about other people's affairs, scandals, or what they're doing behind the scenes. In fact, it's known that chasing gossip leads to frustration and irritability. Gossip is like a dangerous drug that gives you short-term pleasure, but continuously steals your time and builds up frustration and irritability in the long run. Here's the action plan. Block any accounts that constantly spread gossip so you don't see them. Don't install news apps on your phone that feed you gossip. If you have a habit of checking them, delete them right now. And stop participating in conversations that involve rumors, slander, and backbiting about other people. Your mental health and time are precious. Choose to focus on things that uplift you and contribute to your well-being. Alright, let's move on to number 9 on the list. Don't buy luxury goods. Use your money for yourself. I believe in trying things out, so I've invested in new experiences to understand high-end services. I've spent money on various types of luxury goods. I've bought watches and gone to high-end French restaurants that I used to think I'd only be able to go to once in a lifetime. I've tried various high-end restaurants, including Japanese, Italian, Chinese, and creative cuisine. I've even stayed in luxury hotels that cost over 150,000 yen per night. I did these things as experiences and learning opportunities. As a result, While I learned a lot from these experiences, I also noticed two negative aspects. The first negative aspect is simply that it's not cost-effective. The more luxurious something is, the slower the rate of improvement in customer experience becomes. For example, in Japan, you can get sushi at a conveyor belt sushi restaurant for about $13, but at a good restaurant, it averages over $200. But it's not 10 times tastier. At best, it's maybe 1.5 times better. The experience doesn't necessarily improve as things become more luxurious. You're paying for appearances. The second negative aspect is that you develop a bias that expensive things are good. Whether it's food, hotels, or houses, you're generally satisfied once you reach a certain price point. What improves as you spend more money is the accumulation of very subtle details. These details are hard to perceive as experiences, but that's the key. For example, when you go to a high-end French restaurant and the staff explains the dishes placed in front of you with elaborate, difficult words, you start to think, am I stupid for not understanding this? It's not about whether the experience is genuinely enjoyable, but rather a bias that you have to think this experience is valuable. What I want to say is not that luxury goods are bad, but if you're interested, it's good to experience them once within your budget, but make sure you determine if you genuinely enjoy them. This is just my personal opinion, but what I find a bit underwhelming about luxury, especially in the food and beverage industry, is full-course French meals and sushi. What they have in common is that they take a long time and the portions are too large. You can ask for smaller portions, but they're still quite large. Both places tend to have an atmosphere that's not conducive to conversation. Especially sushi restaurants with only counter seating are difficult to talk in. Even if you speak in a low voice, the chefs listen to the conversation quite closely. They often join in the conversation. Of course, it's rude to be loud and boisterous in such a formal restaurant, and I understand that they don't want people like that. But since I want to enjoy eating with people, I prefer to enjoy some casual conversation, so I don't want to go to places where it's difficult to talk. Another thing I find a bit underwhelming about luxury is brand name stores. I've tried giving and buying high-end brand clothing items as gifts. Even if they're durable and long-lasting, expensive things make you worry. You'd be shocked if they got scratched, and you'd start thinking about not carrying them around, even though they're clothes or tools. I've decided that they're not for me, as I can't enjoy them. And excessively large luxury apartments. When I was in a huge living room with a great view, I thought, it's a bit lonely. People don't need that much space to live. There were spaces I barely walked in throughout the year, and that also seemed like extravagance. If you're rolling in dough, this probably isn't even an issue. But I tried it out, and honestly, spending money on this whole extra space thing, I was like, nah, I could totally use this money for something way better. That's when I realized it just wasn't for me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on fancy places. I learn a ton from them. And hey, I even have my own go-to high-end spot. But if you're an adult who's been around the block, tried different stuff, you gotta spend your money on what actually means something to you, right? Alright, so here's the action plan. When it comes to high-end stuff, let's get a little critical. You know how sometimes we just assume something's amazing because it's pricey? Yeah, let's ditch that. We gotta be extra critical. Like, way more than usual. Of course, when you're actually enjoying the experience, go ahead and enjoy it. But when it's time to decide if you're gonna go back, that's when you put on your critical thinking hat. Basically, enjoy the moment, but analyze it later. Alright, so, number 8 on our don't do list. Don't run away from making money. Face reality. When we're young, everyone's kind of broke, right? So, living on a shoestring, cheap travel, it doesn't really bother you. Everyone's in the same boat. But, as you get older, you need more cash, and you start feeling like you can't do anything if you're not keeping up with your peers. People who don't seriously focus on making money, which basically means boosting their market value, are kind of choosing a super hard life for themselves. It's just a fact. The older you get, the harder it is to live happily on just fulfilling work while ignoring the money side of things. Okay, so, let's be real. In today's world, being content with what you have, you know, that whole knowing when you have enough thing, that's way harder than always wanting more. Of course, it's important to appreciate the people around you and your current situation. That's a given. But, can that really keep your heart feeling full? When you're short on cash, your options shrink. You start envying other people, feeling stressed out. You gotta ask yourself, are you avoiding leveling up your market value and making more money? Okay, so, even if you don't know exactly how to make a ton of money right now, it's still good to have some kind of idea, a hypothesis, about how you're gonna build your career and boost your earning power. I mean, things change so fast these days, nobody can really predict the future. But that's no excuse to just stop thinking about it. It's okay to be wrong, but you gotta have some kind of, I think this might work plan. That's what gets you moving. And when you move, that's when you learn from your wins and losses, and that's how you grow. Okay, so, like, take someone doing video editing, right? Instead of just grinding out edits every day, They could think, hey, maybe leveling up my planning skills is key. And then, they start actively throwing in their ideas. Not just editing, but thinking about how to make the video way more engaging. See, without that kind of guess, that hypothesis, you're just kinda stuck. Alright, so, here's the action plan. Let's figure out a career plan to boost your market value. And don't worry, a career plan doesn't have to be some crazy complicated thing. Just make a guess, a hypothesis, and decide on something for now. But don't just stop at imagining your ideal future. You gotta figure out what you're gonna do tomorrow to get there. And remember, don't run away from making money. Alright, so, number 7 on our don't do list. Don't stick with the same old hobbies. You'll end up being that boring adult. As you get older, hobbies become super important. You know, most people kinda hit a wall around their 30s. And by hit a wall, I mean, you just don't have those big exciting I really wanna do this things anymore. Sure, if you sit down and write it all out, you could probably list a bunch of stuff you wanna do. But, does it really get you pumped? Like, do you have that same OMG, I wanna go to Disneyland feeling you had as a kid? It kind of fades away. You get more responsibilities with work and family, and suddenly, you don't have as much free time. Okay, so, picture this. One day, you're just like, wait, is this it? Is my life just gonna be this endless loop of the same old thing, with no excitement? You get this weird, vague fear. And yeah, every day's the same. And even when you hang out with people, it's the same old conversations. That's a sad place to be, right? We swore we'd never turn into those boring adults we saw when we were young. You know, the ones stuck in their old ways, always talking about the past. So, let's talk about an action plan to avoid that kind of tragic future. Cut back on your current hobbies and try something new. Even if it doesn't seem like something you'd be super into, just give it a shot. As we get older, we tend to stop experiencing new things and embracing new values. But it's hard to actually start a new hobby, right? If that's how you feel, then it's clear what you need to do. Reduce the time you spend on your old hobbies. So, the other day, I was having this totally random chat with my coworker at work. And, like, no offense to them or anything, but I realized they're pretty clueless about all the famous dramas, movies, and trends out there. It was just a casual conversation, so I wasn't trying to call them out or anything. But I was like, seriously, how do you not know anything? What do you even do in your free time? And then it hit me. Turns out, they've been spending a crazy amount of time watching sports, like, since they were young. It's their lifelong hobby, which, hey, no judgment. I love watching the NBA too. But, you know, sticking to the same hobby all the time, it kinda limits your perspective. So, I told her, you don't have to give up watching sports, but maybe cut back a bit, watch some highlights instead of full games, and try to make time for other hobbies. And guess what? The next week, she started watching those famous dramas, and I saw her totally getting into the conversations with other people at work. Before, she was always left out, just kinda had to stay quiet because she didn't know what anyone was talking about. It's all about trying a bunch of different things, even if you're not sure you'll like them. Let's start some new hobbies. Number 6 on my do not do list. Don't be bossy or aggressive. It's all about how you say things. This is something I'm really focusing on right now. No matter the situation, I'm trying not to come across as high pressure. Just to be clear, I'm still learning. I'm not perfect at this. But I'm definitely way better than I used to be. Like, I've told you before, back in my early 20s, I was terrible. I'd just say whatever was on my mind. No sugarcoating, like throwing a javelin right at someone. But here's the thing about communication. Once you get someone all emotional, it's game over. You can't have a real conversation after that. And when I used those strong words and things would just escalate. Man, I used to get so frustrated with myself. But look, I'm not saying you should hide your true feelings. Actually, you should totally speak your mind. Like, say what you want, admit when you don't know something, and call out things you disagree with. That kind of self-assertion, that's what drove me when I was younger. I even thought it was one of my strengths, being able to say exactly what I was thinking. But here's the thing, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Here's something I've been doing. I try to smile and speak nicely all the time, not just at work, but whenever I'm awake. I mean, I want to be a consistently nice person, not just in certain situations. Just starting with a bright hello changes my whole vibe. Even with taxi drivers, cafe staff, or people I'll probably never see again, I make an effort to be friendly. When I get out of a taxi, I always say, "Thanks for the drive," in a cheerful tone. This is something I'm doing, and it's an action plan I want you to try too. Let's be a consistently nice person, 24/7. You can totally get your point across without making someone emotional. And the foundation for that is a good, friendly greeting. Humans make decisions based on emotions. As you get older, you have to work with a lot of people, build trust, and get things done. So, let's aim to be nice people, all day, every day. Alright, let's dive into number 5 on the list. Don't do unnecessary chores. Time is money. To be absorbed in your work or indulge in your hobbies, you need time. I'm not saying household chores are bad, but you should minimize unnecessary chores. Here are 2 action plans to reduce household chores. Action plan number 1. Establish routines that prevent things from getting dirty or cluttered. How to eliminate the need for difficult household chores. Once a habit is established, you can do it as naturally as breathing. Household chores will decrease by adopting habits that prevent things from getting dirty or cluttered. Here are 3 typical items that are useful for organizing. Number 1. Storage using boxes is recommended. If you decide what to put in each box, things won't get scattered, and tidying up will be easier. Number 2. Use a bathroom jet after taking a bath each time. It's hard to clean the bathroom after it's covered in mold. With a bathroom jet, you can simply spray it after taking a bath and rinse it off at the end. This is enough to remove dirt. Number 3. Organize wiring with a cable box. Wiring that's tangled to the point where you might think you're about to start a tug of war. Dust accumulates and the risk of fire increases. In the first place, just seeing these cluttered things eliminates the desire to clean up frequently. Method 2. To reduce household chores. Hire a house cleaning service. You should hire someone to clean, even just the water-related areas, once every 2 weeks or once a month. Whether you find someone compatible and satisfactory is a matter of luck, but if you give proper instructions instead of leaving everything to them, it feels great to come home to a clean house. I recommend having them clean the water-related areas. The sink, the bathroom, the wash basin. Personally, the sink tends to accumulate dishes, so having a house cleaning service come regularly prevents dirty dishes from piling up. If you want to enrich your work, childcare, hobbies, and leisure time, invest in reducing household chores. Alright, let's move on to number 4 on the list. Don't try to get by on caffeine and willpower. Know when to say enough. When you're young, your only weapon is time investment. Young people have stamina, so to some extent, they can manage even with less sleep. They can compensate for their lack of ability by investing time, relying on their physical strength. Time investment is also a weapon in work. Time investment equals enthusiasm that others can see. So if you invest time in your work, you can gain the trust of your seniors and bosses, who will think, wow, they're working hard, and they'll teach you things. What I'm trying to say is that when you're young, there are significant benefits to be gained by pushing through with willpower. I don't have as much stamina as I used to, and I feel brain fatigue in the evening. My work style has also changed. I have to handle multiple tasks simultaneously more often. The importance of facing work with a clear head and high concentration, rather than just increasing the amount of time invested, is increasing. You can't just get by on willpower. Recently, I heard that an acquaintance from over 10 years ago, who was incredibly energetic and hardworking back then, took time off from work due to health problems caused by overworking. From what I heard, it sounds like adjustment disorder or the early stages of depression. It's common for people you'd least expect, like that person, to break down from overworking. But working beyond your limits is not sustainable. You might be able to push through for a while, but eventually, your body and mind will give out. Here's the action plan. Make "I can still do it" your stopping point. People who break down often have a "I can still keep going" mentality. But that's how you run a sprint. Life and work are marathons. You don't see marathon runners suddenly speeding up or slowing down drastically, do you? Whether they're fast or slow, those who can maintain a consistent pace without extreme fluctuations are the strong ones. There are people in employee positions who have an excessively strong sense of responsibility. While a company president can choose their work, employees basically cannot. For the work you're responsible for, even if a problem arises due to your own mistake, you should take responsibility and deal with it. However, the fundamental responsibility lies with the company, with the person who assigned the work to you. Because employees can't choose their work, if you try to solve all the problems that arise at work by yourself, you'll end up with sleepless nights and damage your health. Especially if you're in a period of prolonged sleep deprivation, you're in danger. Although the limits of how long people can keep working vary, for anyone, the time to stop is when you think "I can still do it." Alright, let's move on to number 3 on the list. Don't leave your opinions ambiguous. "I don't know" isn't acceptable. Are you always able to articulate what you want? Not just in work situations, but in everyday life too. For example, you're out with friends and you're hungry. Someone's going to buy food, and they ask, "What do you want for lunch?" Do you answer, "Oh, anything's fine"? That's a no-go. An adult is someone who can express their own thoughts. In other words, it's someone who's prepared to hurt someone by making a decision. Innocent children are pure, and they can say what they want to do without hesitation. From there, we go through compulsory education and interact with many people, learning common sense and culture. But along the way, many of us lose the ability to express our own opinions clearly. As a result, you gradually lose the ability to express your own opinions, because you start to worry about what's right and what others think. When you enter the workforce and start working in a company, you need to learn many rules of that industry and company. It becomes even more difficult to express your own opinions. What's common sense? What's the right answer? Thinking about how others will perceive your words and actions is an important skill for living in society. However, originally, learning common sense, culture, and company know-how is just a weapon to do what you want to do. Common sense and culture are worthless for people who don't have anything they want to do. People who can't express their own opinions have two misunderstandings. The first misunderstanding is the belief that you have to know all the right answers. There are many adults who pretend to know. It's impossible to be an expert in everything in a limited lifetime. It's normal to not know things, no matter how old you get. The second misunderstanding is thinking you can make decisions without hurting anyone. Expressing your own thoughts means hurting someone who disagrees with you. Even if you're as careful as possible with how you express yourself, you can't move forward if you don't make a final decision. When you think of becoming an adult, you might imagine someone who's knowledgeable and gets along with everyone, but that's wrong. An adult is someone who's aware of their own lack of knowledge and ignorance, and has the courage to be disliked. Because they're aware of their ignorance, they're not afraid of being different. They learn a lot from their failures. Because they don't try to please everyone, they can express their opinions without worrying about what others think. Here's the action plan. Never say either is fine again. Where do you want to go this weekend? What do you want to eat right now? Which proposal do you think is best in the meeting? Take a stand. People who leave their opinions ambiguous can't even be embarrassed. And they learn nothing. Because they don't grow, they lack confidence, and they live a life of attacking others with constant frustration from fear and jealousy. Express your own opinions. All right, let's move on to number 2 on the list. Don't try to overcome your weaknesses. When you're young and inexperienced, you have many shortcomings, and you're often advised, you should do this more. You try hard to improve when pointed out. That effort is admirable. But as an adult over 30, you should start accepting what you can and can't do, and focus on selective concentration. In my case, I'm not good at being punctual, behaving properly, doing what I'm told without omissions, not forgetting things, and speaking politely without being offensive. It's not that I'm giving up, but as a matter of fact, it's difficult for one person to overcome all their weaknesses and become perfect in a single lifetime. I'm not saying you should give up on your weaknesses when you become an adult. On the contrary, I mean the opposite. Let's seriously work on building systems so that our weaknesses don't become disadvantages. If you only try to fix your shortcomings by yourself, just being mindful, you'll never change. You feel like you've changed for a moment, but you quickly revert back to your old self. I used to think I'd become someone without any weaknesses. I'd decide to change, make a plan for tomorrow, and put it into practice. But over time, I'd slip back into my old habits, and it was hard to change. I was naive. I underestimated the difficulty of overcoming my weaknesses, thinking I could change my mindset with a little effort. You can't try to rewire your brain like that. Think about your parents. You've known them for decades, right? Has their personality changed? It hasn't, has it? Even if your relationship changes as you become an adult, their fundamental personality probably hasn't changed. It's the same for you. Don't believe in just willpower. Personalities don't change. Have a sense of urgency, assuming that the things you're bad at now won't improve even a millimeter in your entire life. It's not about giving up, but with a strong sense of urgency, there are 2 action plans. First, thoroughly systematize everything without any exceptions. Systematization means, for example, since I often forget things, when I get out of a taxi, I always look at the back seat for at least 2 seconds after exiting the door and say out loud, "Okay, I'm good." There are no exceptions. If I ride 100 times, I do it 100 times. Action plan number 2. Thoroughly manage expectations with everyone, without exception. What I mean by managing expectations here is to tell people about your weaknesses, repeatedly, from the moment you meet them until they're tired of hearing it. For example, in my case, instead of saying, "Please forgive me, I'm bad at being on time," I specifically tell them what I need them to do, and ask for their cooperation. "I'm sorry, I'm really bad at being on time. So could you please remind me again the day before we meet? If I don't hear from you, please assume I'm not coming." Everyone responds to this kind of expectation management. I manage expectations with everyone I interact with. I eliminate my weaknesses thoroughly through systems and expectation management. By continuing to do this, your mindset will gradually change. All right, let's move on to number 1 on the list. Don't try to change others. Change the world by polishing your own character. Isn't a happy state in life when you can focus on the present moment? Looking back on my days, when my mind was clouded, it was always when I was endlessly fixated on things that had already happened or on other people. Especially troublesome are human relationships. I'm constantly worried about what my friends, acquaintances, and even strangers think of me. I think, I'm right. That person is wrong. Ultimately, it's anxiety. Why do I keep thinking about these things? I'm afraid of being isolated. I want to be accepted by others. I want to be right. That person is wrong. When I'm thinking like that, my head is filled with negative images, and I'm far from a happy state. Why do we care so much about what others think? It's because we haven't fully committed to living our own lives. If we've resolved to take on challenges, we must also be prepared for others to say all sorts of things. We cannot control the feelings of others, even with those closest to us. No matter how many words we exchange, even when we're in conflict and convinced we're in the right, we cannot control others. I realized this through many difficult experiences. Living happily means focusing on the only thing we can control in life, our present moment. You probably have someone close to you whom you want to be happier than yourself. If there's someone you'd give your life to make happy, then you need to be happy yourself. Stop trying to change others, and end this life of living for someone else, starting today. No matter what happens, keep moving forward, eyes on the future. Keep challenging yourself, keep failing, and keep polishing yourself. Others don't matter. What matters is what you do right now. How about you? Are you consumed by thoughts of others whom you cannot change? Are you living your precious, irreplaceable present moment? Can you make someone else happy when you're not happy yourself? If you think you might not be, here's an action plan. When you're overwhelmed by negative feelings, remind yourself that the only thing you can change is yourself. As long as you focus on the feelings of others whom you cannot change, negative feelings will keep coming back. No matter what happens, all you can do is decide what you'll do next. If you can focus only on what you can control and reclaim your own life, you'll find the courage to move forward. This is a message for those of you who want to continue challenging yourselves, no matter how old you get. It's absolutely going to be alright. I'm not saying I'm the only one who's had it tough, but I've faced so many difficulties. I've been in that dark place, not knowing how to get out, suffering. But even then, by not looking down and doing what I could in the moment, I saw the light. No matter how deep in the darkness I was, if I kept focusing on what I could do right then, the day always came when I could laugh with my friends and say, "Remember that time?" Based on that experience, I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, no matter what, it's absolutely going to be alright. I've come to realize something. Even when difficulties arise, when things don't go as planned and you're faced with your own helplessness, even when you're completely broken, it's going to be alright. There are people who love you for who you are. I've been able to keep going until today because of the support of such people. There are people who believe in you as a person, not in your results or the opinions of others. There are people who will listen to you, no matter how desperate the situation. I've been reminded of this time and time again, that I haven't lost anything truly important. Because I've received so much courage from those important people, I want to tell you now, it's absolutely going to be alright. Let's do what we need to do now. You will definitely see the light. Thank you for watching until the end.